Welcome to the McDermott Library's online presentation of library-sponsored open access publication models and how they can benefit you. This presentation is provided by Davin Pate, who is the Assistant Director for Scholarly Communications and Collections for the McDermott Library, and Matt Young, who is the Assistant Head of Collections for the McDermott Library. This online presentation will cover the following topics: the basics of open access publication, common questions and concerns regarding open access publishing, an overview of the various transformative agreement models, the different read and publish agreements provided by the McDermott Library, and the achievements so far from those agreements. One of the most discussed topics is the Nelson Memo. Released in August of 2022, the goal of the Nelson Memo is to provide free, immediate, non-embargoed access to research that is federally funded. It applies to all federal agencies, including those that provide funding to the humanities and social sciences. It applies equally to both the peer-reviewed publications and the underlying publication data. Open access has evolved quickly and is now more than just about Go to Open Access. More about that in a moment. Due to the Nelson Memo and the growing complexities of open access, there is an increased need for partnerships between researchers, faculty, and the library. With the adoption of open access tools and the evolution of different types of publications such as open access micropublications, the need for partnerships will only continue to grow in the coming years. Our next slide covers the different open access types. First is the most commonly known open access model, GOAD. GOAD typically requires an article processing charge to be paid. This is otherwise known as an APC, in order for the article to be added to the journal. In the past, this payment would be covered through either grant, personal, or department funds. Through various read and publish agreements, which we will cover later on in the presentation, the McDermott Library has secured APC waivers, resulting in lower costs for faculty who wish to publish their article in an open access journal. Go to Open Access journals typically allow the author to retain the copyright of their article. The article is immediately available upon publication, and the entirety of the journal is freely available to the public. In addition, there are no restrictions on the sharing of the article and no embargo dates. The next open access model is hybrid. This is similar to Go to Open Access in that an APC charge is required for an article to be made open. However, most of the articles within the journal may be behind a paywall and require a library subscription for the entirety of the journal to be accessed. Please note that authors that publish in a hybrid journal must pay the APC and flip their article to open in order to retain copyright. Many of the read and publish agreements UT Dallas has secured also cover hybrid journal APCs. Another open access model is Green. Green Open Access, otherwise known as self-archiving, allows authors to self-archive articles in an institutional or open access repository. Here are a few key differences with Green Open Access as compared with other open access models. First, published versions of an article, otherwise known as versions of record, are not allowed, unless the article itself was published in a Go journal or in a hybrid journal and an APC was paid. Green Open Access only allows for preprints and postprint versions of the article to be used. These versions typically have not either completed peer review in the cases of preprints or have not yet had copy editing and formatting done, as is in the case for postprints. Finally, the discoverability of Green Open Access articles can be trickier as they are housed in institutional repositories and may be more difficult to find. One final note is that Green Open Access articles often require an embargo period before they can be shared, and this embargo period can be between 6 months and 24 months in length, depending on the publication. A recent and positive development regarding this restriction is the introduction of no-embargo green open access publishers. Currently, both American Chemical Society and Taylor and Francis are involved in these initiatives. The final open access type is diamond or platinum journals. Articles published in a diamond or platinum journal have no APC charges, and the journals themselves are typically community-driven and academically led. Most of the journals exist in a not-for-profit publishing venue and/or in an academic institution. These journals are often overlooked for more commercial options. MIT and Harvard are both institutions who fund and support Diamond Open Access. There are many reasons why faculty may choose to publish in an open access journal or convert their article to open access. One may be to increase the citation and author impact of their journal, or it could be to retain copyright and being able to determine how their article is being shared or reused. Some altruistic reasons can be to improve the equitable access to the research, or to allow easier access to your article, rather than require someone to have a subscription. Finally, open access can allow research to be shared quicker and to improve collaboration with fellow researchers. While there are many benefits to open access, we often hear concerns from faculty and researchers, and we would like to address over the next few slides some of those common concerns that have come up. One of the most common concerns we hear at the library is that open access journals are of inferior quality. Each major publisher has some sort of open access or hybrid journals in their portfolio. The peer-reviewed standards remain the same regardless if the journal is open access or if the article is flipped open in a hybrid journal. Below are some examples of quality journals with open access options. As a side note, each of these journals are included in one of the McDermott Library's Read and Publish agreements. Another comment we hear is that promotion and tenure require published works in prestige journals. Publishing in open access can expand potential readership, thereby increasing the shares, the downloads, and the citations, which has a positive effect on an author's impact measures. Remember that many of these open journals are coming from the same publishers and are peer-reviewed, high-impact journals. Faculty often raise concerns about APC costs and how they can be expensive. Some APC fees can cost $10,000 or more for a single article. The McDermott Library recognizes this is an issue for faculty. This is the reason why we are actively pursuing Read and Publish agreements. Later in the presentation, you will learn about the impact of existing Read and Publish agreements and how you can assist with expanding the program. The last concern that we will cover in this presentation, and a question we often encounter, is how will my research be reused? There are a variety of open choices that you can make, and depending on your level of comfort, the range goes from allowing full redistribution and adaptation of the work, as long as attribution is given, to only allowing redistribution of the material for non-commercial purposes with no adaptations allowed. This would include translations of the article. A few quick facts about open access and article reuse. All 6 open access types require attribution. It is not permissible to reuse research without attribution, regardless of the level of the CC license. Prohibitions exist to prevent any reusers of open access articles from suggesting that the original author endorses their views or viewpoints. Any changes made to an original work must be clearly indicated by the reuser, and the reuser must link to the original work for reference. I will now turn the presentation over to my colleague, Matt Young, who will explain the different types of agreements UT Dallas has, as well as provide some other insightful info.
Thank you, Davin. In this portion of the presentation, we will define the transformative agreement concept and evaluate the 3 main subscription models. A transformative agreement is a set of terms negotiated in a license between a publisher and a library, library system or consortia, or national organization, which is fundamentally designed to shift costs away from subscription-based reading and toward open access publishing. While some larger university libraries have established extensive publishing support programs with dedicated funds and staffing in recent years, we know that libraries traditionally allocate funding to the acquisition of new materials and to journal and database subscription costs, which are both exorbitant and increasing annually. These agreements, therefore, represent a paradigm shift in the way that academic libraries develop their collections and serve their students and faculty. Transformative agreements are intended to be transitional, and that the purpose is to eventually shift costs to publishing and eliminate subscription-based reading access to scholarly research. The term transformative agreement is often misused in this dialogue between publisher and university. There are different types of transformative agreements, so it's important to think of the term as a concept, or, as we'll discuss in this slide, a parent in a hierarchy. The most common transformative model is the read and publish agreement. In a read and publish, the publisher receives payment for both subscription-based reading and publishing costs in a single contract. A library will aim for an unchanged or decreased total cost compared to the prior read-only agreement. A publish and read, on the other hand, is when the publisher receives payment for publishing only, and reading is included at no additional charge. This is not as common. The third agreement type is the subscribe to open model. In this model, existing subscription-based journals are converted to open access at no additional cost to the institution. The publisher decides which journals are eligible and determines the target number of subscribing institutions for the current year. Once that threshold is reached, all articles in eligible journals permanently convert to open access for that year. Conversions happen 1 year at a time and are not guaranteed. The subscribe to open model can also apply to ebooks, in which case the conversion to open access is permanent. Focusing now on the University of Texas at Dallas, we've established that a read and publish is when the publisher receives payment for both subscription-based reading and publishing costs in a single contract. By absorbing burdensome costs associated with open access publishing into its current subscriptions, the university library can remove obstacles for authors on campus and further progress the shift to open science. The Eugene McDermott Library is proactive in pursuing these agreements as a means of facilitating greater control and impact for UTD researchers, while fostering institutional goals of global scholarly engagement and equitable access to information. Visit our research guide, Transformative Agreements in Publishing, for details on everything we cover in this presentation. The read and publish model is a relatively recent development in the open access movement. Most major publishers have added this licensing option over the last 3 years. What is viable for one publisher may not be viable for another, so the details of these agreements can vary. The most important consideration is what is viable for UT Dallas. McDermott Library has set the following benchmarks when considering new agreements. There should be no annual limits placed on the number of articles published. Open access publishing must be available in the majority of the publisher's journal portfolio. There should be evidence of UTD faculty publication. We review 3 years of publications to assess the likelihood of interest and usage. And finally, the added cost to the library's annual base subscription should be minimal and cannot exceed 10%. The library must also be mindful of long-term sustainability and misleading license terms. Most agreements are offered on 3 or 4-year terms. How will the cost of read and publish agreements change upon renewal? Can the library support the additional costs without funding increases? Some licenses could be considered predatory when publishers attempt to front-load open access publishing costs on a 3 to 4 year agreement while limiting the institution's annual article output or strictly limiting the number of eligible publications. We have seen publishers who appear to be capitalizing on the trend, looking to add the revenue of a read and publishing license addendum, but with no clear plan to convert journals to open access. We have discussed the current state of open access, explored the most prominent types of open access publishing and transformative agreements, and even dabbled a bit in the finer details of Creative Commons licensing. It's time to apply that context and learn about the direct benefits available to UT Dallas students, faculty, and staff through our current read and publish agreements. By publishing open access through the agreements, authors can extend global readership, increasing citation in number as well as diversity. Article processing charges, which range from $1,000 to upwards of $10,000, are fully waived, saving grant funds, department funds, or the author's own out-of-pocket costs. The author holds copyright control with no restrictions. The author is given flexibility with choice of gold or hybrid journals, Creative Commons license, and sharing via institutional repositories. And finally, it's easy to take advantage of the agreements. When the corresponding author submits the manuscript, a check for institutional affiliation simply leads to a few additional options in the form. This is streamlined into the normal submission process. There are currently 5 read and publish agreements in place, and McDermott Library is diligently seeking out viable additions as funding allows. The agreement with the Association for Computing Machinery ensures that the APC is fully waived. This is a savings of $1,000 to $1,800 per article or conference proceeding. ACM is unique in that the author is presented with 3 author rights options. Starting with the most control, the first option grants full author copyright, non-exclusive publishing rights for ACM, and choice of Creative Commons license. The second option grants full author copyright with exclusive publishing rights granted to ACM. And finally, the author may choose to give all publishing and copyright control to ACM. ACM's gold and hybrid journals and conference proceedings are eligible for these benefits. A quick note about proceedings. ACM co-publishes conference proceedings with IEEE. These benefits can only be applied when the conference was sponsored by ACM, which is every other year. The next agreement is with Cambridge University Press. APCs, which range from $1,275 to $4,920, are waived in full. The author retains full copyright control and choice among all 6 open access Creative Commons licenses. There are more than 200 gold and hybrid publications to choose from. The Institute of Physics charges APCs ranging from $1,900 to $4,455 to publish open access. That is fully waived with the IOP publishing agreement. The default choice is a CC BY license. The author retains copyright, all proprietary rights, and the right to reproduce, distribute, and prepare derivative work with attribution, with additional freedom to upload to any repository. IOP's 72 gold and hybrid journals are eligible, with the exception of the 4 Electrochemical Society publications. Authors who take advantage of the SAGE publishing agreement will not pay an APC. These range from $500 to $4,000. Authors retain copyright and use the CC BY NC license with an option to use CC BY if required by their research grant. In 2025, there are 206 gold and 1,050 hybrid journals to choose from. There are 6 gold journals that are eligible for all benefits except for the APC waiver. This short list changes every year, so tune into our guide for the current exceptions. If publishing to a hybrid journal, the article will be posted to PubMed Central or its international equivalent as required by Research Funder. There is a read and publish agreement with SPIE. APCs are waived in full, saving our authors $1,675 to $2,100. Authors retain copyright, all proprietary rights, and the rights to reproduce, distribute, or prepare derivative work with attribution on a CC BY license. SPIE is flexible with immediate upload to repositories. There is 1 diamond journal, 6 gold, and 8 hybrid journals in which to publish open access articles. An open access fee is charged when submitting conference proceedings with SPIE. Finally, while it is not a true read and publish agreement, UT System has a discount program with Elsevier. When UTD-affiliated corresponding authors submit to Elsevier for open access publication, a notification is sent to the library to approve a 10 to 15% discount. The average savings comes out to $300. There are 1,800 eligible gold and hybrid journals. The program excludes Cell Press, The Lancet, and certain society titles. As of October 1, 2024, 144 articles and proceedings have been contributed through McDermott Library's read and publish agreements, saving UTD authors a total of $252,907. That's an impressive number, but it could grow considerably by sharing the information covered here. Expanded usage and positive feedback could possibly lead to the increase in university funding needed to pursue additional read and publish offers. We need all the help we can get from campus partners in raising awareness of these programs. Before bringing this presentation to a close, here's a brief overview of McDermott Library's engagement with the Subscribe to Open model. These are not author-facing APC models, but rather an easy and effective means of advancing open access with the library's current subscriptions and little to no financial investment. We are excited about the Project Muse plan beginning in 2025, and MIT Press's direct-to-open model is worth a special mention. As a participating institution, McDermott Library has helped MIT Press to flip 240 high-quality ebooks to open access in the program's first 3 years, leading to nearly 500,000 downloads. According to MIT's Impact Report in 2024, their humanities and social sciences books are used 3.7 times more and receive 21% more citations than their non-open counterparts, while their STEAM books are used 2.67 times more and receive 15% more citations than their non-open counterparts on average. Thank you for reviewing this presentation. We want to know what you think. Please scan the QR code here to tell us which publishers you would most like to see added if the library were to secure additional funding. And as always, your librarians are standing by to support your research and any questions you may have. Find your school's liaison here or contact today's presenters at the bottom of the screen for comments and questions about the content of this video.